Welcome to Alternatify, the place where we peel back the layers of history and ask the most intriguing of questions. What if? Today, we're diving headfirst into a monumental thought experiment. We're going to imagine a Europe where the euro, that ubiquitous symbol of continental unity, simply never came to be. Picture a world where the Deutschemark still reigns in Germany, the French franc circulates in Paris, and the Italian lira jingles in Rome. What would such a Europe look like? We'll explore the profound ripple effects, identify the potential winners and losers, and uncover just how different our current reality might have become. This isn't just a flight of fancy. It's an exploration of economic forces, political ambitions, and the very fabric of European identity. So, buckle up, because we're about to embark on a fascinating journey through an alternative history. Let's discover the world we might have missed. First, let's ground ourselves in the reality we know. The euro, as we understand it, officially launched in 1999 with physical notes and coins appearing in 2002. Its creation was the culmination of decades of effort towards a single European market. It was a bold, ambitious project. The primary purpose was clear: to eliminate the costly and unpredictable exchange rate fluctuations that plagued intra-European trade. By doing so, it aimed to boost economic activity and foster a deeper sense of European identity and cohesion. It was more than just a currency. It was a political statement. The architects of the euro envisioned a continent bound together, not just by treaties, but by shared economic destiny. They hoped it would prevent future conflicts, create an economic powerhouse capable of rivaling the United States, and solidify Europe's place on the global stage. It was a grand design indeed. Now let's rewind the clock. In our alternative timeline, the euro never materializes. This means that the familiar national currencies of Europe continue their existence. We'd still be dealing with the Deutschemark, the French franc, the Italian lira, the Spanish peseta, and the Greek drachma. The British pound, of course, would remain steadfastly independent, as it always has. This continued fragmentation would inevitably lead to increased complexity for international trade. Businesses would constantly face the challenge of converting currencies, dealing with fluctuating exchange rates, and managing the inherent risks. The seamless cross-border transactions we now take for granted would be a distant dream. For businesses, this means a constant need for hedging against currency risk, adding layers of cost and administrative burden. This friction could slow down economic growth, making cross-border investment and trade less attractive. The single market would still exist, but its economic engine would be running on a different, perhaps less efficient fuel. However, this scenario isn't without its silver linings for some. Currency traders, for instance, would have a field day. The constant volatility and the need for hedging would spur innovation in financial instruments and services, creating a vibrant, albeit complex, market for currency management. It would be a playground for those who thrive on financial arbitrage. Let's delve deeper into how individual nations might have fared. Germany, for example, would likely have maintained its economic dominance, perhaps even more emphatically. Without the pressure to support weaker Eurozone members, its fiscally conservative approach would have kept the Deutschmark incredibly strong. This would make German exports more expensive, but also cement its reputation for stability and quality. France, on the other hand, would retain full control over its monetary policy. This flexibility could be a double-edged sword. It might allow the French government to devalue the franc to boost exports or stimulate its economy during downturns, offering a powerful tool for national economic management. However, it also means facing the full brunt of market speculation. Italy, a nation often cited as a beneficiary of the euro's stability, would have a different path. The lira, historically prone to devaluation, would remain a safety valve during economic crises. While this could lead to periods of higher inflation, it would also give Italy more control over its economic destiny, allowing it to adjust its currency to remain competitive. The lira's flexibility would be a national asset, albeit a volatile one. And what of the United Kingdom? Already outside the euro, its position as a global financial center would likely be strengthened even further. With a multitude of European currencies still actively traded, London's expertise in foreign exchange and financial services would be in even higher demand. The City of London would thrive as the primary hub for managing Europe's diverse monetary landscape. Now let's confront one of the euro's most defining moments, the debt crisis of the late 2000s and early 2010s. In our real world, countries like Greece, Portugal and Ireland faced immense pressure, exacerbated by a one-size-fits-all monetary policy that couldn't address their individual needs. The crisis highlighted the inherent difficulties of a single currency without full fiscal union. Without the euro, the scenario would unfold very differently. These countries would have retained their monetary control, crucially, the ability to devalue their own currencies. This mechanism, while painful, could have acted as a shock absorber, making their exports cheaper and potentially mitigating the severity of the crisis. It would have allowed for a more tailored response to their specific economic woes. However, it's vital to acknowledge a significant caveat. The underlying problems, excessive government spending, structural imbalances and lack of competitiveness, would still exist. These issues wouldn't simply vanish. Instead, they would manifest differently, perhaps as more frequent currency crises, higher inflation, or even sovereign defaults on national debt. The pain would be real, just distributed and managed differently. The absence of the euro wouldn't magically solve deep-seated economic issues. It would merely change the tools available to address them and the way those problems ripple through the continent. The crisis might have been more localized, but no less challenging for the nations involved. Let's consider some of the potential upsides of this alternative reality. One significant benefit would be the preservation of national sovereignty and identity. Each country would retain full autonomy over its economic policies, allowing governments to tailor fiscal and monetary decisions to their unique circumstances and political priorities. This would foster a stronger sense of national self-determination. This economic diversity could lead to a more varied and potentially more vibrant European economy. Different countries experimenting with different economic models could foster innovation and competition. Instead of convergence, we might see a rich tapestry of economic approaches, each striving for success in its own way. Furthermore, a fragmented currency landscape could reduce the risk of contagion. When one country faces an economic downturn, its problems would be less likely to immediately spread to its neighbors through a shared currency. Countries would be more insulated, allowing for more localized crises rather than continent-wide tremors. Finally, without the euro, there might be greater accountability for national governments. With no shared currency to absorb or dilute their fiscal decisions, countries would be solely responsible for their economic performance. This could, in theory, lead to more stable and disciplined fiscal policies, as the consequences of mismanagement would be immediate and undeniable. The absence of the euro would undoubtedly reshape the global economic landscape. The US dollar, already a dominant force, would likely maintain its position as the undisputed leading global reserve currency. Without a strong, unified European challenger, its supremacy would be even more entrenched. This would give the United States even greater leverage in international finance. However, this scenario could also open opportunities for other currencies to play a more significant role. The British pound, for instance, might become an even more important reserve currency, especially for countries seeking an alternative to the dollar. Similarly, the Chinese yuan, already on a trajectory of increasing internationalization, could find itself playing a larger role sooner, filling the void left by a non-existent euro. The geopolitical implications are also fascinating. A less economically integrated Europe might struggle to project a unified voice on the world stage. Its economic power would be dispersed, potentially diminishing its collective influence in global trade negotiations and international relations. The dream of a truly unified European superpower might remain just that, a dream. This could lead to a more multipolar world, with individual European nations pursuing their own economic and political agendas rather than acting as a cohesive bloc. The balance of power would shift, creating new alliances and rivalries that we can only begin to imagine. Beyond the grand economic theories, How would this alternative reality affect the average European? Travel and trade would certainly be more complicated. Imagine crossing multiple borders, each requiring a different currency exchange, each subject to daily fluctuations. The ease of movement and commerce we enjoy today would be replaced by a more cumbersome, albeit perhaps more adventurous experience. On the flip side, the preservation of national identity and culture might be stronger. Without the unifying symbol of the euro, national currencies often serve as powerful emblems of sovereignty and heritage. This could foster a deeper sense of national pride and contribute to a more diverse and vibrant cultural landscape across the continent. The job market would also see differences. While there might be more volatility due to currency fluctuations, there could also be new opportunities. The financial sector, for example, would innovate to manage the complexities of multiple currencies, creating jobs in hedging, foreign exchange, and international finance. It would be a different kind of dynamism. Finally, social cohesion might be weaker at a European level, but potentially stronger within national borders. The shared identity fostered by the euro would be absent, perhaps leading to less pan-European solidarity. However, this could be offset by a reinforced sense of national belonging and community within each country. So, if the euro never existed, what alternative paths might Europe have taken towards integration? One compelling possibility is a focus on strengthening institutions and fostering gradual, organic integration. This would involve deepening cooperation on trade, security, and environmental policy, all while retaining national currencies. It would be a slower, perhaps more resilient path to unity. Another path could see Europe investing heavily in innovation and technological advancements. With less focus on monetary convergence, resources might be redirected towards creating a dynamic, competitive economy driven by cutting-edge research and development. This could lead to a Europe at the forefront of global technological progress. Furthermore, without the pressures of a single currency, individual nations might have prioritized welfare and environmental sustainability more directly. This could lead to a Europe composed of diverse yet highly developed societies, each striving for an equitable and sustainable future, focused on human well-being rather than purely economic metrics. These alternative paths suggest that European integration isn't a single predetermined trajectory. There are many ways to build a continent, and the choice of currency is just one, albeit significant, variable. Comparing our real world with this alternative, we see a mixed record for both. The euro, in reality, has brought stability and facilitated trade, but also exposed deep structural flaws and led to painful crises. Our alternative, with its fragmented currencies, might have offered more flexibility but also more volatility and less collective power. There's no easy answer as to which is definitively better. Ultimately, the preferred scenario depends entirely on one's priorities and perspective. Do you value stability and collective strength above all else? Or do you champion national autonomy and economic diversity, even if it comes with greater risk? These are fundamental questions with no universal right answer. The most profound lesson from this thought experiment is that history is never predetermined. The choices made by leaders and nations have profound and lasting consequences. Every decision, every path taken, closes off countless others. It reminds us of the critical importance of understanding these trade-offs and engaging in thoughtful, critical analysis of our past and potential futures. We've journeyed through a Europe that never adopted the euro, glimpsing a continent shaped by different choices and different economic realities. We've seen a world of continued national currencies, varied economic fortunes, and a different global balance of power. It's a Europe that is both familiar and strikingly alien. This exploration underscores a vital truth. History is not set in stone. The present is merely one of an infinite number of possible outcomes. By critically examining these what-ifs, we gain a deeper appreciation for the forces that shape our world and the decisions that define our collective destiny. Now we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on a Europe without the euro? What pros and cons do you see? What challenges or opportunities do you think would have emerged? Share your insights in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this dive into alternative history, Please consider liking this video and subscribing to Alternatify for more thought-provoking explorations. And don't forget to suggest future video ideas. We love hearing your what-if questions. Keep exploring the what-ifs of the world, for in them lies a deeper understanding of the reality we inhabit.